Hi, everybody. We are Cindy Lewis and Sandie Orlando, your two coaches for CL Performance Training. We're here today to talk about fueling, and that includes both training and race fueling. And we're going to go through that together. We're going to go through a few questions that we hear often from athletes and try to give you guys a little bit of information on how to be better.
Great. Okay, so we're going to start off sort of a bit of a Q&A for Cindy. So a lot of big first question is, how long does that workout or race have to be in order to consider fueling?
So to consider fueling during your workout, you definitely need to think about that for any workout that's over an hour long, whether that's a swim, a bike, or a run. But also, if the workout's under an hour and it's very hard, so if you're doing very hard intervals, you might feel like you need to do some fueling with gels or Gatorade or some other type of sport drink during a workout that's intense as well. And it also has to do with what else you've done that day. So if you're a triathlete, you're training for an Ironman, you did a swim in the morning, you did a bike ride at lunchtime, and you're going to do a short run at the end of the day, you might need to fuel that run as well. But in general, we'll give you some guidelines as if you're fully recovered going into those workouts.
That seems like a crazy kind of workout right there for an Ironman. You might have just scared off half the people watching. Let's talk about
what it is. We got to know what we're getting into, right? When you sign up for an Ironman, you better expect to have 2 workouts most days and sometimes more than that. That's what it takes to do that safely and be healthy.
Exactly. And fueling is such an important part of that. So let's rewind a little bit for runners who are not doing that kind of thing. If you're training for 5, 10K, half marathon, how important is fueling?
So if you're doing the shorter races, like if you're training for a 5K, you don't necessarily need to be taking gels and Gatorade through most of your runs. But what you do need to do is think about having enough fuel and the right fuel in your body before you head out there, and then putting in the right fuel in with the right timing after your workouts. Keeps you so that each workout is successful, keeps your body strong, helps you recover, make sure you don't get injured. It's really, really important. So if you're doing, again, those shorter races like a 5K, you do still want to make sure that you take in some carbohydrate within the hour to 90 minutes before heading out. And that can be easy. That can look like, an English muffin with jam, or, some bread with PB&J or honey on it. If you don't have real food with you, you can take a gel, you can take some Gatorade, just get some carbohydrates in that body so that you're not starting with an empty tank. Many of us run in the morning, and if that's you, same thing applies. You've just spent the whole night sleeping. It's a good idea to, if you don't get up early enough to eat breakfast, you do want to take a gel or take some Gatorade before you head out. And then throughout your workout, if it's under an hour, which most of the time will be for a 5K, go ahead and do that. But when you're finished within a half hour, you want to try to get in some carbohydrate again with a little bit of protein this time. So something like, if you can tolerate dairy, chocolate milk is good for recovery. If you can't tolerate dairy, something like a banana and yogurt, or, yogurt has dairy, but not the same type of lactose that milk does. You can take a recovery powder, dump it in your water, whatever it is you want to do. You want to get in something within that 30 minutes and then a real meal within 60 to 90 minutes after. As you get into the longer distances, so the longer it is, the more you need. When those workouts start to be longer than that hour, that's when you need to fuel during them. And how much fuel matters. So you want to basically take in as much as your body will allow you to take in without having digestive problems. We'll always burn more than we can take in. So you never have to worry about, taking in more calories than you're burning when you're out there doing that stuff. The guideline for how much carbohydrate to take in during an endurance workout over an hour is 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour. So you can think about what it is you like to take. And again, we talk about carbohydrates because that's what powers our endurance exercise. Taking a protein bar, is not a good idea. That does not power your endurance exercise. That makes your body work really hard to digest it. Causes, things like cramping, having to stop at a port a little along your run. You want to keep your nutrition that you're taking in during your workouts pretty much purely carbohydrate. And again, 60 to 90 grams based on what you train your body to be able to handle. based on your body size, based on how long you're going to go.
Let's
You
let's
can look
let's
at
address sugar. Let's address sugar, because I think people are going to go, okay, 60 to 90 grams. How do I measure that? But let's talk about sugar, because you keep mentioning carbohydrates, and I know a lot of people are afraid to take in sugar, like in their sport drink. So why is it okay? Why is it a good thing?
You have to. You'll run out if you start doing marathons or longer distance triathlon. You're going to run out of energy if you don't take in carbohydrates. You want to take in carbohydrates so you can keep your energy level like this, right? And never let those stores empty, because that's when you're going to bonk or hit the wall, right? Assuming that you've trained properly. So you need to take in sugar during endurance exercise. A lot of us in this sport are always talking about, losing a few pounds, getting a little bit more lean. A lot of people come into the sport because they're trying to lose some mass, and that's all good and fine. But don't try to lose that mass while you're working out. Try to do that the rest of the day. So don't be afraid to take in sugar during these workouts. You have to take in sugar during these workouts to perform and to recover.
And that applies to people who are, say, for example, faster half marathoners or marathoners. If you're out there on the course and you're super fast and you're only there for a short length of time versus someone who's slower and is out there for a longer amount of time, what's the difference for the approach to fueling?
You still need to take in that much. It just means that, if you're finishing in 70 minutes, you've got less total grams of sugar or carbohydrates that you've taken in, versus someone that's out there for 2.5 or 3 hours. They've got 3 hours worth of taking in that sugar. So you think of those grams per hour as per hour rather than per mile, right? So the longer you're out there, the more you're taking in. But the longer you're out there, the longer you have to maintain your energy.
Right. Does it make a difference with temperature, winter, summer?
Good question. You're still burning all that energy in the winter. You're just not as soaking wet. So it's true. Many people, when they're running in the winter or whatever it is that they're out there doing, they don't take in as much. They don't hydrate as well. They don't take in as many calories because they feel they're not burning as much. You still are, and you still do need to take that in. It just takes a little bit more conscious effort to make yourself do so, because it doesn't feel like you need it until you do already hit that wall and realize it's too late.
Mm-hmm. And the hydration, even when it's cold out, your respiration is still, you're losing your fluids that way as well, right? Not just through sweat.
And we talked about carbohydrate grams, but hydration, when you're on the bike, if you're a triathlete, you want to try to get in normal average temperatures, 750 milliliter bottle of sport drink per hour on those workouts longer than an hour. If you end up, in the heat of the summer and it's 30 plus degrees, you might need to, times that by 1.5 or times that by 2. You need to take in a lot to be able to stop yourself from becoming dehydrated during those summer temperatures. So that's something you really need to pay attention to, because a little bit of dehydration makes a huge difference as far as performance and also as far as recovery is concerned.
So let's talk about the people who go out there and only have water on the bike, for example, and they say, "Oh no, I just take water. I don't take a sport drink." Why? Why is it important to take the sport drink?
So first of all, if you're someone who does just take water, you can make that okay as long as you get those calories and get those electrolytes some other way. So you can take water and electrolyte tablets or salt and gels to get all the calories you need, but you need to make a plan so that you hit your targets. It has to do with, the percentage of certain things inside your bloodstream versus outside your bloodstream, inside your cells versus outside your cells. When you don't take in electrolytes, you're actually going to get more dehydrated rather than hydrated if you just take water during an endurance event.
Right. So it's the imbalance of electrolytes that, for example, creates hyponatremia for athletes who are overhydrated with just water because their electrolytes aren't there to help the body assimilate. Is that
Yes.
close?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay. Good. So somebody who's going from, for example, a marathoner, and they're stepping up into triathlon, half iron or full iron distance. What sort of things do you see people making a mistake when they're making that transition in terms of their fueling? What surprises them?
I think the sheer volume of what you need to take in, like, after doing an Ironman, sometimes I think about how many gels I took and how much Gatorade I had. And I think about like this big mountain of sugar, which I put in my body. And, to be a good endurance athlete, you need to pay attention to what you eat, right? But that doesn't mean you need to not eat sugar. Like, as I said before, you need to eat it at the right time or consume it at the right time. But the biggest surprise, I think, for people is like how much it is. When you're out on your bike, to get that amount of carbohydrate and calories, you need to take, 2 to 3 gels per hour plus a bottle of Gatorade. And you might be out there for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. You can think about how much that is. It's a shock to people when they first kind of think about what that takes.
Mm-hmm. And training the gut's important too, especially when you get into this kind of training, because first of all, finding out what's being served on the course so that your body is accustomed to what you're taking in. If you're training with only one brand of gels or sport drink, and then you get onto the course and it's a different one, you need to pay attention to that, right? So how important is it
100%.
to train your gut?
I think, to me, training your gut means training it with every workout over that hour. Like, if you're getting started with Ironman training, for example, like as soon as those longer bike rides hit 60, 75 minutes, start training your gut by taking in the amount of carbohydrate you need to take in on race day. Because if you say, oh, I'm just going for 3 hours, I only have room for 2 bottles on my bike, that's all I'm going to take. Well, that's fine. You might make it through that workout and you might eat enough afterwards to recover and be okay. But when suddenly in your race, you start taking in a bottle of an hour and 3 gels an hour, your body is like, it's not used to that. It's not used to digesting that. You're going to have issues. So you really do have to train your gut to accept that volume of carbohydrate and electrolyte. So same thing with salt tablets. When you never train with salt tablets, if you're someone who needs them, and then suddenly you're going for a 10 or 12-hour race and you're taking salt tablets, your body doesn't know what to do with that. So you need to train with them and get your body used to them if you want your body to accept that on your race.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you see, unfortunately, people who don't follow that strategy by the side of the road or in the bushes. Yeah. And it's not a pretty sight and not fun to go through, for sure.
We all know people that, are great trainers. They go out and they are amazing every bike ride and every run, every long weekend training workout that they do. And then they get to the race and, they've got digestive problems and they need to stop at all the portalets along the route. Like, there's a reason why that happens. And the most common reason is they didn't train their gut properly during training to accept it on race day.
Yeah, it can be avoided. The other challenge I think people find is how to carry that, the actual logistics of it, especially when you've got, the super bikes with internal framing, or even just with that. Never mind that. If you're using your own product, and how to figure out how to carry that with you, race day, maybe for example, for Ironman, you have a special needs opportunity, but for training days, if you're out there, what are you doing in order to reload? If you don't have general stores that are going to sell for, if you're using a really high-end gel or something like that, or sport drink, and how are you carrying that powder? You're going to have to, on a tri outfit, where are you putting that stuff? So that's all the stuff that you need to work out as you're doing your training, in order, to get that fueling done right.
Yeah, you need to think about it. It takes planning. It's not easy to head out for hours on your own and with all the stuff you need, but there's ways to do it.
Yep. And I think the same goes for, for runners who are training half marathon, full marathon, going out for those long runs. You still need to figure out where you're going to put that. So how are you going to carry it? Because a lot of people don't like to carry, a waist thing or wear a vest or something like that. You really need to work that stuff out. It's important.
Yep. And there's all kinds of different ways, like for runners to carry fuel, right? I hate running with a waist belt, but sometimes I have to, right? Because I know that if I'm going out there and I'm going out on my own on a country road, I'm not going to have anywhere to stop. And especially if you're someone who doesn't take like Gatorade, for example, that you can pick up at a gas station or a convenience store, I might have to, whether I like it or not, but there's other options. You can wear a camelback, you can carry a bottle. There's lots of hand bottles out there.
Mhm.
You could go out in your car, and bottle drop for yourself. Whatever you need to do, there's ways out there, and it's not as convenient as maybe running out the door with nothing, but you'll be happy that you did.
Yeah, for sure in the long run. Oh,
Or run circles, run small loops around your house and have stuff set out on your front porch. Many people do that as well.
yeah. And or also snack size bags of powder. That's what, rather than having to have it pre-mixed or whatever, bring the powder with you. You can always shove those into odd places
Yeah.
on your body. Girls have an
Yeah.
easier way of doing that for sure, but yeah,
Yeah.
ways around it.
Yeah, because you can buy water, as long as there's a store, you can buy water there likely. So you can dump your own powder into that water and shake it up.
Exactly. Yeah. Did we miss anything?
I think just going back to training with bottles and fuel versus being in the race, like some people really can't tolerate certain types of sports drinks, but a lot of
Mhm.
people can. And that's where coming up with a training, a fueling plan that involves the same fuel that's going to be at your race is helpful, because then you don't have to carry it on race day, right? You can pick it up at the water stations. So, if you're going to a race that has Gatorade, train with Gatorade. If your body can handle it, train your body to handle it. If you're
Mhm.
going to a race that, has some other type of sport drink or type of gels, work hard to use that during training so that you don't have to carry bottles and, pockets full of, of gels and Cliff Blocks along the way.
Yeah. So the one thing that I always wonder about is when you're doing a, for example, marathon race, and you have aid stations every 2 kilometers, 2.5 kilometers, whatever it is, relying on those, is that the smartest strategy
I
versus
think
carrying your own?
I think it depends. Honestly, I don't want to do a race where I have to wear a water belt. I'm happy to train with one, but I don't want to do a race where I have to. I'd rather drink at the water stations if they're 2 or 3K apart. That said, we now have some of these bigger marathons that don't have a water station until 5K, right? And that's too far. That's too long. Um, so it depends on the situation and on the person, and how much you can take in at once as well. So
Mhm.
you got to think about yourself, and it's all individual, and that's why we do individual coaching, right? It's not like there's one map and one exact way for each individual.
Right. Awesome.
There you go. Whole lot of information for y'all to assimilate, and Sandy and I
Yeah.
are always here to chat and answer questions the best that we can. And if we don't know the answers, we're good to figure it out, because we want to know the answer too. So if you have any questions, send us an email. We can be found at clperformancetraining@gmail.com. And you can find out about all of the things that we do at www.clperformancetraining.com. Thanks, everyone. Happy training. Have a great day.